अभी जो है we have our chief guest, another veteran, professor of eminence, Dr. Sunil Kant Behra sir, from Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Tezpur Central University, Assam. Directly or indirectly, we have learned so many things from Behra sir. So I would like to request Professor Behra sir to start his deliberation. Kindly address the gathering, sir.
Thank you, Rajiv, and a very good morning to all of you. And
my pleasure, sir.
I thank particularly the Brave Education Society for giving me this opportunity. And since morning, I'm very proud actually to listen to my students and also my colleagues. It certainly was a learning experience for me from different perspectives. I have listened about the COVID-19, listening to Dr. L.K. Tripathi and his Buddh and Sanigra and the things that he talked about, the Vyavahar, Vyapar, then Atyachar leading to Sadachar and Vairagya. And then also listening to Mr. Arun Gemini, where he invoked the sense of humor and how humor will lead to happiness and certainly leading to the lessening of mental stress during this COVID time. So, and Banawatji also talked very sensibly about what we are facing and more importantly, what are the challenges and how to overcome those challenges. He has always been very emphatic in his opinions, and that was even today I could hear about that. And when I, after listening to all these people, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. After listening to all these people, so my job became very easy. I have jotted down certain points. I have tried to summarize how COVID has impacted. COVID-19 has impacted all of us. And the COVID-19 is not just a health pandemic, health issue. It is affecting societies and economies at their core. It affects the lifestyle. It affects our lives and livelihoods. And it is not confined to a particular country, to a particular community, or to the rich or poor. It affects one and all around the globe. Now, when I think about the COVID-19 impact and the experiences and the knowledge that I have garnered by reading various many articles on the impact, I will certainly say that we are in a position and there's certainly the emergence of a new world order. After the COVID-19, a new world order will emerge, which will determine our social and behavioral patterns, which will determine our engagement with the global economies, which will determine our engagement with the education system. And regarding I will very briefly jot it down, the first very general impact of COVID-19, there will be increase in poverty and unemployment, that no one can deny. Second, larger effect on the lives and livelihoods and lifestyles of people. Third, realization amongst us about the very fragile and inadequate healthcare systems in almost all the countries. Then the most important thing is increased mental stress and disorder, leading to severe mental health conditions, which in certain cases lead to suicides also. Then financial insecurity, stress, and uncertainty have led to horrifying global surge, particularly in the field of domestic violence and increased aggression at home. I am talking about the disadvantaged sections of the society. I was reading a report. There is an increase of about 13% of domestic violence cases during this pandemic period. That's a cause of worry. Then the realization. Now, if you look at the urban migration, the migration of the rural urban migration, and look at the slums where the COVID-19 has impacted or affected more. The major concern there is the unhygienic in rural, urban areas. And that is a very major concern where we talk about the living spaces, we talk about the housing schemes, but if we look at the disadvantaged sections of people living in the urban areas who go from the rural areas to the urban cities in search of employment, their living conditions are pathetic, and that perhaps has to be re-looked upon by the government, by others, and by all of us. And the next is visibility. Many of my earlier speakers have talked about the migrant laborers. Unfortunately, I will say, we were not aware of these migrant laborers to the extent that we are able to know about them now. Only after the lockdown was declared, we saw the movement of the migrant laborers, which is about 9.5 crore in our country, and they were the invisible labor force in the unorganized sector. And suddenly, people have come to realize that yes, we have a large segment of people, a labor force, who are working as migrant laborers, and for them there is no policy, there is no conditions, service conditions. We never thought about them. They were invisible. So the major impact is that they have become visible to the government and the society now. So we will start thinking about them. Then next comes the increased social stigmatization of the COVID-19 patients and even the cured people. This is not limited to the rural areas only. I will tell you, in where I am living, in Guwahati, in even Bhubaneswar, in Bangalore, people after being cured, when they go to their flats, their apartments, the societies, they refuse to accept him. They say that you go to the quarantine center again, and after you found to be negative twice or thrice, then only you can shift to your home. That kind of social stigma that has come into the fore is a major cause of concern during the COVID-19 that I experienced, we all experienced during the AIDS pandemic, but now it has become much more, what I will say, we should try to move away from this stigmatization. There need to be a change in our mindset. There need to be a kind of a fellow feeling needs to be developed, and nobody is untouchable. You see, this is not a contagious disease, and we must realize that. I am sure that there is a lot of awareness campaigns are going on. The media are doing a lot. The government is doing a lot. Yet, if we do not change our mindset, nothing can change the society. Now, then I will come to a very major point. Voluntary practice of using masks, maintaining social physical distancing in public places and markets, it's still missing. Many people use masks. Yes, I do agree. But when we go to market, we do not maintain the social distancing. And unfortunate thing is that in India, even during this crisis, we need police people to tell us and to regulate our behavior, to regulate the individuals, our individual social and public behaviors, which is unfortunate. We need to be very sensible, and we need to rise to occasion. We need to rise to the occasion and voluntarily practice all these things. Then only we can say that we can come out of this crisis. And then I will come to being a teacher. The education sector, I will talk at length at the end, but the education sector has almost come to a halt, as teachers and students have now moved out of their universities, schools and colleges and are confined to their homes. Today, higher education stands disaggregated, I say. I use the term and the quote, disaggregated, because the students, they no longer enjoy the confined space. The teachers and students no longer enjoy. We are engaged certainly in online teaching and learning, which I will come to that, but we are enjoying a virtual union only. And pandemic leading to infodemic. We are, Professor Vanavadi talked a lot about the role of media. I do agree that a very positive role being played by media, but at the same time, I will also talk about how the pandemic led to an infodemic, resulting in sharing of unauthenticated, unverified information, misinformation and disinformation campaigns through social media, which creates further panic. Instead of helping people to be much aware about the possible consequences of COVID-19, that further dilutes this misinformation and disinformation campaigns, and the unauthenticated information sharing further dilutes the whole process. And I will come to webinar. I may sound a little caustic, but webinar, I do agree that suddenly we have online has become the default mode of education, and webinars have become the most important tool of creation of knowledge and sharing of knowledge. But at the same time, increased number of webinars, almost about 1,000. I was just taking note of the number of webinars that has happened all around the country, 1,000 during the pandemic. It has been felt that webinars are a panacea to all our educational problems that we encounter today. The notion that webinars have been able to create and disseminate knowledge as an affront to the traditional mode of teaching learning needs to be re-examined. It has been very, very competitive. The webinars we are having today, we also had having a webinar today. I'm thankful to the organizers, but webinars also need to be planned. It's not about simply conducting a webinar in order to, there are people, even I might be liking to see myself as a speaker in many, many webinars. There are people, those who want to be online, but look at about the learners, look at about the participants. Are they active learners or active participants? Or are we creating a passive learners, a gamut of passive learners during these webinars? Sorry to say this, but we need to think about these things. Now, saying that the online mode has become the default mode of education, I will also say the reality is that by the end of mid-June, actually the epidemic has spread over to about 210 countries, and 91%, I am quoting from a UNESCO report, that 91% of the educational institutions are closed today, affecting about 2.38 billion students globally. Now, the most important thing again, the speed of the spread of the epidemic, the closure of the higher education institutions, and the tectonic shift from traditional teaching to online teaching, it was very swift, and hardly it gave any time to plan and to reflect on the potential risks or the potential opportunities that such a sudden change could bring. We have suddenly moved from our traditional face-to-face teaching to an online mode of delivery. Somewhere, whatever we are engaged in today is online delivery of education. Online delivery is not online learning. I will tell you that. I will come to that. Now, I will focus more on education besides these things. And I have pointed out I will talk with the negative consequences of this COVID-19 first. And when we talk about the global education, as you all know, if you look at the global mobility of higher education students, today there are about 5.4 million students, those who are studying abroad all over the globe. And talking about India, we have about 6 lakh students every year, those who are pursuing going abroad and pursue their higher education studies. And the largest impact or effect will be on the global mobility of higher education students. And the first impact, negative impact of COVID-19 is the sluggish or the low global mobility of students. And low global mobility means the students, those who are pursuing their higher education and they have come back to their countries, home nations, and they are not in a position to go back and pursue their studies further. That's the biggest problem. Second is passive learning by students. Passive learning. Now look at, I will quote a statement, the sudden shift to online learning without any planning, especially countries like India, where the backbone for online learning was not ready and the curriculum was not designed for such a format, has created the risk of most of our students becoming passive learners. You see, online teaching, online pedagogy,
राजीव सर
Yes, मुझे लगता है सर का थोड़ा सा नेटवर्क इश्यूज है.
am I not audible?
Yes, sir. Now you are back, sir. You are back.
Oh, now I am back.
So just you know, just for 2 seconds, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So what I mean to say, when we suddenly shifted to an online mode of education, we were not. Education requires a different set of skills. Online education requires certain infrastructural facilities. I will not go into the details of digital divide. We have been talking a lot about digital divide and also the Digital India campaign, but I will not go into those things. But still today, about 45% of the students in the rural and unconnected areas, they are not digitally connected. Even if they are digitally connected, they are not digital literates. They simply using an Android phone for connectivity is a different thing altogether than using the Android phone for educational purposes. Because a learning is a stepwise process, and when you use technology, we need to understand how, not the nuances of technology, but how the technology will be used. The science of learning of digital technology, that's more important. So we are creating perhaps a bunch of passive learners during this time of online. Now, third is unprepared and untrained teachers for online education. I myself, if I look at myself, I am not that knowledgeable in technology. I am not that technology savvy. I have been teaching communication for the last 40 years, but I am not using much of technology. Okay, when I look even to my young colleagues here in some departments, in some universities, for them the technology use is limited to the PPTs. They go to the classes with the PPTs and show the PPTs and teach them. That becomes a much easier process of teaching for the teachers. Everything is there on the screen, keep on reading and explaining a bit. That actually is the most prevalent mode of technology usage in terms of delivery of education, which should not happen. Technology usage is something very different. And we are now beginning to realize that online learning could be dull, as it is creating a new set of passive learners which can pose new challenges. Now, there is a risk that if our teachers are not trained, if our teachers are not motivated, if we do not change our mindset to move from a face-to-face educational setup to an online mode of teaching learning, then perhaps no set of guidelines by the government will serve the purpose. We teachers need to be trained. We teachers need to be given that right kind of skills which are apparently needed for online education. Now, changing format of student admissions, examinations, evaluations. Every day, I do not hesitate to say that if I look at the number of letters coming from UGC, coming from MHRD, coming from various other regulatory bodies, they are confused. Today they talk about completing the exam online by end of July. Tomorrow again we will get a letter that it will not be online, it will be offline. Day after tomorrow we will get that we will completely do away with the examinations, and evaluations will be based on the performance of the previous semesters. Like that, it's uncertain world today. So that's a major problem that we are facing, not only in terms of the admission of students, but in terms of planning, in terms of thinking or strategizing how to deal with education during this COVID-19 time. Now, the positive things, the opportunities. There are also, as somebody has very rightly said, the problems actually give rise to opportunities. We will have to think about create opportunity. One is, the most important thing is rise in blended learning. Neither we can be face-to-face, nor we can be only online. There has to be a perfect blend, a perfect mix of face-to-face teaching as well as online teaching. Now, a blended learning is the solution in the future. Secondly, there are many companies all over the world, those who are developing learning management systems. Learning management systems and are to be used by the universities and colleges and schools, where they will bring in transparency, they will bring in accountability into the online mode of teaching learning. So learning management system will have to be used by the educational institutions. Third, improvement in learning material. That's very important. The digital content, it's not only we can translate our class notes into a PDF format. It's not enough if we give the links or the study materials. We will have to create the digital content ourselves. The teachers, we need, because whenever we teach in a face-to-face classroom situation, what we do, we contextualize the content, and the context has to be, there has to be a bridge between the content and the context. Because when we teach in a classroom, we look at the face of the students, we look at the body language of the students, then we customize. We look at the student differentials, their power to learn, power to internalize, and then we customize our teaching pedagogy according to the needs of the students, which perhaps it is missing in online. We will have to create a common pedagogy for all the students, those who are online. But we cannot do like that. We need to study the demographic features of the online learners. We will have to create a customized learning for the virtual learners who are online. Understanding capabilities, we need to know about their infrastructural facilities, we need to know about their socio-economic background, so that we can contextualize, so that we can customize. That is very, very essential, and that is going to happen. Then rise in collaborative work. No longer the higher education institutions can work in ivory tower situations. We cannot know university, whether it's JNU, whether it is Stanford, whether we cannot work remaining in an ivory tower situation. No teacher can say that I know everything and I am the best. Nobody is perfect. Nobody has the more knowledgeable, the most knowledgeable. Learning is lifelong. Now, what is required is we will have to go to the ground. We will have to connect with the students. We will have to connect with the other stakeholders of the society. And through online modes, that connect becomes very possible, whether you are in States, whether you are in Ghana, whether you are in Sri Lanka, whether you are in by Professor David Mould, somebody must be knowing from Ohio University, maybe on development communication. So these are the opportunities. Now webinar, as I said, that was this is also an opportunity. You see, when we think of organizing international conferences in the future, it's not necessary that we must invite them physically. We can have a seminar in our departments and Online, we can request the international experts and we can listen to them online, interact with them. And that is the opportunity that has come to us, and we have realized its importance during the COVID-19 times. Now, I will summarize the things. I was just going through an article in Hindu, and very rightly, they have talked about this technotic shift. And today's education, they talk about education 4.0. This is the fourth revolution in education. If you look at the evolution and revolution of education in the earlier times, during the last 2000 years, there were three educational revolutions. One was the Gurukul system, where one guru was teaching to few people. Second was the traditional university system, where one to many learners. Third came the distance education system, where it was one to very many learners across spectrum. But today, it is very many learners will be there, and geographic space will not be a constraint. Geographic boundary will not be a constraint. We can teach students all over the world at a time, and at the same time we can blend them. So this blending of the online and face-to-face education is actually the fourth revolution of education 4.0, what they call it. Now, in that article also, in order to achieve, sorry, I will take 2 more minutes. I will just quote from that article.
No problem, sir, you can.
Sure? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir, perfectly, sir.
Okay. Now, there are 7 elements, there are 7 requirements which will make online education much more proactive, much more learner-centric, and that connect. You see, when we meet, the teachers and students, when we meet in a physical space, we try to use that physical space. Where you see, if you look at the theory of spatiality, then we have a personal space, then you have a public space, social space, all those things. So we are learning to use that space to create that intimacy where a teacher and student can learn and from each other. Teaching is not one way. Teaching and learning, if we look at NAAC guidelines, it's no longer teaching is important. It's no longer learning in isolation is important. It's about teaching, learning. Teaching and learning have to happen simultaneously. It may be through discussions, it may be through games, it may be through orations, it may be through role plays. All these, there are many methods of brainstorming can be done, and all these things can also be online mode. Very important that I was listening to a lecture by Dr. Aparna Khanna from the Delhi University, and she has developed certain games and how you can teach by using those games. That was a fun learning, and said the humor, fun can be a part of your learning pedagogy, teaching pedagogy, and that will keep the students engaged. And there will be no fear of creating a passive learners. The students will be engaged, the students will be active, and the teacher will be engaged, active, and learning will be interactive, and learning will be continuous. That is the essence of online teaching, should be the essence of online teaching. Now, the elements what that article talked about, the long-term and sustainable triumph of this technological shift from face-to-face to online learning or teaching will depend on 7 major elements of online learning. First, online learning is not a library of video lectures and e-books that converts class notes into PDFs. Creating high-quality digitized learning content must be contextualized to make learning interesting and engaging. As I was telling you, teaching through games. Doing this takes a rare skill set which few organizations in the world can boast of. Universities need to collaborate with such organizations for their digital pivots to be successful. So digital learning, creation of digital learning skills creation of digital content. And the universities do not have that expertise, and there are organizations all over the world, and the universities need to collaborate with them. That's one. Second, subject matter covered in the classroom is to be delivered online, but with technology as the intermediary. Now the use of technology. I will say that blind replication of the same is a bad idea. We cannot replicate our classroom teaching blindly on an online mode. It requires a great deal of understanding and application of learning, science and digital pedagogy. Pedagogy, a classroom pedagogy and a digital pedagogy are two different things. That needs to be understood by the teachers. That needs to be understood by the learners also. So the science of digital pedagogy, it's not the digital technology, but the science of use of digital pedagogy, science of use of technology and science of the digital pedagogy need to be understood by the teacher. Every teaching faculty needs to be enabled with this knowledge, or else collaboration with the experts is the way forward. Those teachers need to be skilled. Third, classrooms have typical diverse learner groups. In classical pedagogy, the best of teachers and subject matter experts derive a content-context cluster. Content and context. Some of who are media teachers must be knowing about 7 C's, the content and context. The content needs to be contextualized. And you can't teach. You might be having a very good teacher, but if you are reaching your students in a railway compartment, there the context and the situation is not conducive to teach them. You require a context and a space. So that's very important. Now the best of it, then the teaching learning transaction is crafted according to that constructed mean. You will have to construct a mean by blending the content and the context. Then according to that constructed mean, you will have to create online learning situations, and institutions need to spend as much time on the context for the diverse learner profiles. Means the target learner profiles, the socio-economic profile of the learners need to be understood, need to be researched upon by the teachers and by the institutions, higher education institutions, or even the school authorities. Then sciences of artificial intelligence. We talk more in terms of artificial intelligence and deep learning models. And these are the advanced technological things. Artificial intelligence and deep learning models have to be used while planning the online educational pedagogy. Online planning. Higher education institutions must embrace these quickly to overcome the ills and current digital higher education, because you need to plan, you need to strategize. Unless you use artificial intelligence, unless you use the deep learning models of digital technology, then you will fail to generate a kind of learning module which will be acceptable to the global community. Because why I said global community, nowadays for the last so many years we are talking internationalization of higher education, we are talking of globalization. Somebody talked about the liberalization, globalization. Globalization has a larger impact on everything in any of the countries. So we must learn from that. Online learning is not about one pedagogical model, but an aggregation of various models. One pedagogical model that we practice in the face-to-face classroom situation will not be enough. There have to be a multiplicity of pedagogical models. There have to be multiple pedagogical models which have to be mixed and match depending on the various contexts. If you are teaching the students there in a rural university, a different pedagogy is needed. If you are teaching there in Delhi, a different pedagogy is needed. If you are talking to your global students, a different pedagogy. If you talk to a mix of students from rural, urban, There you will have to mix different pedagogical structures so that you can customize your teaching and learning will be easier. And then put learning science and not technology in the forefront. Technology can only facilitate. Technology can only mediate. But technology should not overpower the intellect of the teacher. The teacher has to learn the science of technology, how to use technology. It's always right from during the days of industrialization, there was a war between man and machine. And always men won over the machine. Similar is the case today. I'm talking of going back to the Second World War, the industrialization phase. There was man and machine war. Today it is the man and technology war. And technology should be a facilitator, but technology should not overpower our intellect, overpower our abilities. So what is needed is to put learning science and not technology at the forefront. If you learn the science of using the technology, then you will be successful. And finally, of course, even in the post-COVID-19 era, offline or conventional education models will not become redundant or obsolete. They will survive. However, blended learning, as I have said earlier, a combination of classroom and online modes will be the norm. Institutions and teachers will blend the two judiciously according to the context and the content. This is what I had to share with all of you, and it was, I hope, we will be able to, there is some food for thought. We will keep on deliberating on these issues because COVID-19, we are very uncertain how long we will be into this pandemic, and maybe by end of December, maybe 2021, because many universities have stopped their admissions in the global universities, they have gone online. India, in these days of uncertainty, we need to take up the challenges and try always to surmount those challenges, and I am sure we are able enough to surmount those challenges. Thank you very much. Thank you, the organizers. Thank you, Rajiv, and a wonderful moderation. And thank you very much. It was a pleasure to hear हमारे कवि साहब जो ह्यूमर और लाफ्टर और ये सब बोले और ब्यूटी पार्लर कैसे वीडियो कॉल नहीं ले सके. I really enjoyed this session. Thank you so much to all my colleagues and to all the participants.
It's our pleasure, sir. As always, you know, very beautifully you touched upon the increased aggression at home, domestic violence, migration, and so many other issues. You raised the important issue of social stigma faced by the people. You know, we have to regulate our behavior. We have to counsel ourselves. You also, you know, highlighted the importance of blended teaching, you know, blended learning. That is the solution now. Education 4.0 from Gurukul to traditional to distance and online learning. You know, teaching learning transition is the need of the hour. So thank you very much once again, sir, for your insightful and thought-provoking address, sir.
Thank you, Rajiv.
My pleasure, sir. My pleasure.